Imagine if the NHL had all the best players that have ever played the game in the league at the same exact time, and you could sit there and watch and see who goes on and wins the Stanley Cup, who dominates the regular season, who takes home all the major individual awards. Well, the good news is we are going to be doing that here in today's video. That is right, boys. We are going to have the NHL, but every single team is an alumni team. That means all the legends from each NHL team are going to be playing in the NHL currently, and we are going to simulate and see who dominates this era of hockey with all the best players that have ever lived for every single franchise in the NHL. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the rosters in the NHL right now. All right, so let's take a look at the NHL here, see what legends are back into play. Now, the Anaheim Ducks, they're going to have guys like Teemu Selanne, Jari Kurri, Chris Pronger. Their starting goalie is going to be Ryan Miller at a 90 overall, though, so that is good. Let's take a look at Arizona. They're going to have guys like Jeremy Roenick, Mike Gartner, Owen Nolan, Keith Tkachuk. Boston is going to have Ray Borg. Zdeno Chara is in the game. He wasn't there last year, I don't think. Buffalo is going to have guys like Dale Hawerchuk, Phil Housley, Pat LaFontaine. Calgary got Al McGinnis, Jerome Iginla, Theo Fleury is there, Dougie Gilmore. Carolina's got Paul Coffey, Ron Francis, Rod Brindamore. Chicago's got Chelio Savard, Jeremy Roenick is there. Colorado, they got guys like Teemu Selanne, Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg. Rick Nash is on the Columbus Blue Jackets. He's finally in the game. I don't think he was here last season. He doesn't have any stats, though. Detroit's got Gordie Howe, Nick Lidstrom, Chris Chelios, Paul Coffey. They are absolutely stacked. Of course, Edmonton has guys like Gretzky, Messier, Coffey, Yuri, Pronger, Anderson. Ryan Smith is there. Florida doesn't really have much, if I'm being honest. The Hartford Whalers, I added them in because we have teams like Vegas and Seattle who do not have alumni teams. LA's got Gretzky, Robinson, Dion, Curry, Luke Robitaille's there. Minnesota basically has Owen Nolan and nobody else. Montreal has John Boliveau, Maurice Richardi. They're stacked to the nines. Holy hell. They have like 990 plus overall players. Nashville's got Peter Forsberg and not much else, honestly. The Devils, they got Scott Niedermayer, Brendan Shanahan. The Islanders got Dennis Potvin, Brian Trottier, Pat LaFontaine. The Rangers, who they got here, they have Gretzky, Messier, Brian Leach, Park Gilbert. They have a pretty good, solid team. Ottawa's got Sergei Gonchar, Marian Hossa, and Danny Heatley. 50 goals in 07, never forget. Philadelphia's got Chris Pronger, Eric Lindros, Bobby Clark, Jeremy Roenick. Rod Brindamore is there as well. Pittsburgh, they obviously have guys like Lemieux, Yager, Coffey, Francis, Trottier. They're definitely going to be one of the better teams. Quebec, they have Peter Forsberg, Joe Sakic, Matt Sundin. St. Louis, they do have the other Gretzky, Brett Hall, Chris Pronger's there, Al McGinnis, Brendan Shanahan, another team he's going to be on. As you guys can see, there's definitely going to be duplicates of some players because they play for multiple teams. Tampa Bay's got Marty St. Louis, the current coach of the Montreal Canadiens. Dan Boyle is here. Toronto has guys like Mahovich, Sundin, Gartner, Sittler, Larry Murphy. Vancouver's got the Sedin sisters, of course, Marcus Naslin, Bertuzzi's there. Somehow they got Sammy Salo on the Vancouver Canucks. This dude was not a legend. I'm sorry. And of course, their starting goalie is going to be my favorite goalie of all time, and Roberto Luongo. Bobby Lou, baby. Finally, he's back in the NHL games. It's been a few years since he retired, and they have not added him in. So I'm definitely happy seeing that. Washington got guys like Gonchar, Larry Murphy, Gartner, Adam Oates. And finally, for the Jets, they obviously are going to have Teemu Selanne, Savard's there, Hawerchuk, Housley. They have a pretty good overall team. So now that we know the rosters of pretty much every single NHL team in the alumni NHL era, let's go ahead and simulate to see who goes on and takes home the Stanley Cup year after year. So at the end of year number 1, the St. Louis Blues are going to end up being the best team in the NHL, winning 58 games, followed by the Red Wings. Pittsburgh was up there, Los Angeles, Philly, Montreal, New Jersey. Brett Hall is going to end up leading the NHL in points with 103, followed by Wayne Gretzky's 102. The other Wayne Gretzky had 87. Lemieux was up there with 85. Yager had 81. Joe Sakic 79, Teemu Selanne 78, and the other Gretzky 76. Wait a minute, we have 1, 2, 3, we have 4 Wayne Gretzkys in the NHL right now. That is going to be very confusing. Now for goals, who's going to lead the way? It's going to be Gretzky, then Lemieux, Hall. Jesus Christ. Hall back to back to back, 46, 46, and 42 goals. One of the Sedin sisters were up here, Gretzky, Luke Robitaille, and the other Wayne Gretzky. We did not even have one 50-goal scorer in the entire NHL this season, so that's kind of surprising. Scott Niedermayer is going to lead all D-men in points with 66, followed by Paul Coffey, 65. Ray Bourque was up there. Potvin had 62. Housley, 59. Kind of trails off from there. Now for goalies, who's going to lead? Grant Fuhr is going to tie for the most wins in the NHL at 44. Mike Vernon was up there. Sawchuk at 41. Patrick Waugh had 40. Bobby Lou was up there with 39. Grant Fuhr, the other Grant Fuhr, had 37. And for shutouts, who's going to lead the way here? Maloch is going to lead with 10 shutouts on the season for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't even know who this guy is, boys. Grant Fuhr is going to have 8. Soart had 7. Johnny Bauer, 7. Mike Vernon, 7. Patrick Waugh was up there. Cam Ward of the Carolina Hurricanes. And this is what our year one playoff matchups look like. And in the Stanley Cup final, we have a matchup between the Oilers and the Red Wings. I mean, both teams are absolutely stacked with talent, so this should be a great Stanley Cup final. Let's see who goes on and takes home that Stanley Cup in year number 1. And in year number 1, not really that surprising that the Edmonton Oilers are going to go on and win the Stanley Cup as they defeat Detroit in 6 games in the Stanley Cup final. It was kind of a back and forth series, but not really. Edmonton was clearly the better team. And I mean, when you got guys like Gretzky, Messier, Grant Fuhr, Paul Coffey on the team, Yari Curry is there, it's pretty hard to bet against them. Wayne Gretzky is going to take home that Conn Smythe for Edmonton, 15 goals and 26 points in the playoffs. Not the greatest stats in the world. I mean, the goals were definitely there, but usually Gretzky tears up a lot more than that. Honestly, kind of surprised by that. And there is the Stanley Cup being raised in Edmonton yet again. No current players are playing right now in the NHL. They want to get the viewership back up there, just like it was in the 90s when he was competing against the NBA. Here is Gretzky yet again going to take home a Stanley Cup in his NHL career. I believe his 5th, because he did win 4 during his NHL career, and now in year number 1, he gets it again. All right, now for the playoffs, Wayne Gretzky is going to lead in goals with 15 and points with 26, followed by Messier's 23, also 10 goals. Yari Curry was up there. Ray Bourque had 20. Peter Forsberg, 19. Brett Hall is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while Wayne Gretzky is going to win the Maurice Richard. The Norris is going to go to Scott Niedermayer. The Lady Bing to Brett Hall. The Conn Smythe, of course, to Gretzky. The Vezina is going to go to Grant Fuhr, and the Selke will go to Joe Sakic. Now, at the end of year number 2, the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to go on and be the best team in the NHL this season, winning 58 games. Followed by the Red Wings, they were up there with 54. St. Louis, Montreal, Toronto, Edmonton, who are the defending champs. Boston was up there. LA, New York, the Rangers. Let's take a look at the bottom of the NHL here. Who do we have? We have the Buffalo Sabres being the worst team in the NHL. Columbus was down there. Nashville, Anaheim, Carolina, Florida, Arizona. Gretzky is going to end up leading the NHL in points with 97, followed by Brett Hall's 90. The other Brett Hall had 86. Gretzky was up there again. Lemieux had 86. Gretzky again. Gretzky again. Jesus Christ, this is going to be so confusing. Jaromir Jagr had 80. Mike Modano, 79. Joe Sakic, 78. Now, if we take a look at goals, Brett Hall is going to lead the way with 57. Wayne Gretzky had 52. Lemieux, 46. Brett Hall had 45. Jagr, 39. Pat LaFontaine had 38. Joe Sakic, 34. Daniel Sedin, 34. Now, if we take a look at defensemen here, Larry Robinson is going to lead the way with 72 points, followed by Phil Housley, 67. Paul Coffey at 63. Ray Bourque, 61. Yet again, Malochi is going to lead in wins with 44. I know I'm absolutely butchering that name. Followed by Sawchuk, who had 43. Patrick Waugh had 39. Johnny Bauer, 37. Grant Fuhr, 37. And for shutouts, Patrick Waugh is going to tie with Grant Fuhr for the most at 9. Followed by Luongo, 7. Ranford had 7. Malochi had 6. Johnny Bauer was up there. Martin Brodeur. And this is what our playoff bracket looks like in year number 2. And in the Stanley Cup final, we have the St. Louis Blues versus the New York Rangers. A battle of Wayne Gretzky versus Wayne Gretzky. Let's see who is going to go on and take home that Stanley Cup in year number 2. And just like that, the St. Louis Blues are going to come back down 3-1 to the Rangers in the Stanley Cup final. I thought they were down and out of it, but they made a comeback, winning 3 straight games, and they are going to take home that Stanley Cup for the first time since 2019. And I believe that's their only Stanley Cup that they've ever won in their franchise's history. And Al McGinnis is going to win the Conn Smythe for the St. Louis Blues. 6 goals and 13 points is going to do it. Oh my God, look at his hair. His hair is magical. Oh my God. And yet again, it looks like Wayne Gretzky is going to take home another Stanley Cup. I have a feeling that he's going to win a lot of Stanley Cups during this video, considering there is 4 of him. Good thing though, he's not even the captain, because there is Chris Pronger coming to lift the Stanley Cup for the first time in the video, as the St. Louis Blues are going to take it home here in year number 2. Rod Gilbert is going to lead the NHL in goals with 12 and points with 32 for the entire playoff run. Wayne Gretzky was up there 23, the other Gretzky 22, Brendan Shanahan 21, Mike Gartner 20. Gretzky is going to win the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while Brett Hall is going to take home that Maurice Richard. The Norris is going to go to Larry Robinson, the Lady being the Gretzky, and of course the Conn Smythe somehow to Al McGinnis. The Vezina to Sawchuk, and the Selke will go to Wayne Gretzky of the Edmonton Oilers. So for year number 3, the Detroit Red Wings are going to be the best team in the NHL, winning 55 games, followed by Pittsburgh, who had 53 wins. The Oilers were up there, Montreal, the Rangers, Buffalo, LA, Toronto, the defending champs, St. Louis. At the bottom, who do we have here? Of course, we still have Florida, Anaheim, Nashville, Ottawa, Carolina, the same teams pretty much. So Wayne Gretzky is going to lead the NHL in scoring yet again, this time having 99 points on the season. How ironic is that? Followed by Howard Chuck's 90. The other Gretzkys were up there. Brett Hall had 84. Henrik Sedin, 82. Mark Messier was up there. The other Wayne Gretzky also had 80. Now for goals, if we take a look here, Mario Lemieux is going to lead the way with 57, followed by Gretzky's 54. Brett Hall was up there with 51. Gretzky had 46. Howard Chuck, 41. Daniel Sedin, 40. Maurice Richard is finally here, 38 goals. Luc Robitaille, 37. Now for defenseman, Paul Coffey is going to lead the way with 74 points. Also had 21 goals on the season. Phil Housley had 66. Paul Coffey, 63. Keith Yandel was up there, 13 goals and 61 points. Ray Bourque had a pretty good season. Scott Niedermayer, 58. He was a minus 15 though. Terry Sawchuk is going to lead all goalies and wins with 47, followed by Johnny Bowers, 43. Grant Fuhr was up there. Patrick Waugh. Glenn Hall had 39. Now for shutouts, if we take a look here, Patrick Waugh is going to lead with 6. Actually, it's going to be a 4-way tie between goaltenders. Mike Vernon was up there. Ed Belfour, Glenn Hall, Patty Waugh. The other Patty Waugh had 4. And in the Stanley Cup final, we have the LA Kings versus the Detroit Red Wings. So Gretzky yet again is back in the Stanley Cup final. Now, I do believe that all 4 versions of Wayne Gretzky have made the Stanley Cup final so far during the video. We have the Oilers, Rangers, St. Louis, and now the LA version of him in the Stanley Cup final. All right, let's see who goes on and takes home that Stanley Cup in year number 3. Well, it looks like the Detroit Red Wings are going to take home that Stanley Cup, as they are dominating LA in Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals. It's not even close. I mean, it's a 7-2 game here, and the Red Wings are going to get the revenge as they go on and win the Stanley Cup in year number 3. They would absolutely dominate LA in 5 games in the Stanley Cup Final. Mike Modano is going to take home the Conn Smythe for the Detroit Red Wings, and there it is, the Stanley Cup, as it is being raised in Detroit for the first time in a long-ass time. I believe 2008 was the last time that the Red Wings won the Stanley Cup. Here's their captain, Stevie Y, baby. The Yzer plan has come forward as Detroit is our Stanley Cup champions here in year number 3. Bernie Nichols is going to end up leading the entire playoff run in scoring with 25, followed by Brett Hall's 18. Mike Modano had 18. The Gretzky had 18. Gretzky is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while the Maurice Richard is going to go to Lemieux, the Norris to Paul Coffey, the Lady being the Gretzky, and of course the Conn Smythe to Mike Modano. Grant Fuhr is going to win the Vezina, and the Selke will go to Wayne Gretzky of the New York Rangers. So at the end of year number 4, yet again Detroit is going to absolutely dominate, but Montreal is going to be there as well. Both teams had 59 wins on the season. Pittsburgh was up there, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Dallas, Hartford. Now at the bottom, we probably have the same teams: Tampa Bay, Washington, Minnesota, Carolina, and Nashville. Yet again, Gretzky is going to lead the NHL in scoring, this time with 98 points on the season, followed by Brett Hall's 91. Yari Curry was up there with 81. Jaromir Jagr, who's been pretty quiet this simulation, 34 goals and 79 points. Timo Solani had 79. Luc Robitaille, 77. Eric Lindros, 76. Now for goals, Gretzky is going to lead the way with 49, followed by Brett Hall's 46. The other Gretzky was up there, Lemieux, 43. Gordie Howe had 41. Rick Nash is up there, 36 goals on the season. Brett Hall had 35. Luc Robitaille, 35. The other Gretzky. Dale Hawerchuk, 34. Jagr had 34. The other Robitaille, Morins, whoever the hell this guy is. Paul Coffey Coffey is going to lead all defenders in points with 64, followed by the other Paul Coffey, 62. Sergei Gonchar was up there. He was a minus 15. Dennis Potvin had 61. Chelios, 59. Terry Sawchuk is going to set an NHL record for the most wins in a season with 50, followed by Parents, 43. Patrick Waugh had 41. Sean Burke was up there. Maloch, 41. Ed Bell, 4. A lot of good seasons by the goalies here. And for shutouts, Martin Brodeur, it's going to be a three-way tie, actually, between Brodeur, Hextall, and Maloch. They would all have 8 shutouts apiece. Curtis Joseph was up there. Parent, Cheevers, Terry Sawchuk. And in the Stanley Cup Final, we have a matchup that I did not expect to see, but we are here nonetheless. We have Dallas versus Montreal. Let's see who is going to go on and take home that Stanley Cup in year number 4. And the Dallas Stars alumni are going to go on and take home that Stanley Cup after they beat the Montreal Canadiens in 6 games in the Stanley Cup Final. We already know that Montreal's absolutely loaded, but guys like Mike Modano, Brett Hull, Ed Belfour are all going to win it with the Dallas Stars, and the Conn Smythe is going to go to Mr. Mike Modano. 10 goals, 24 points in the playoffs, a very solid playoff run by him. And there it is, the Stanley Cup finally being raised in Dallas. I believe they only have 1 Stanley Cup in their franchise's history, and here comes our captain, Mike Modano, coming to lift the Stanley Cup for the first time in the video as the Dallas Stars are our year 4 Stanley Cup champions. Howie Morenz is going to lead the entire playoffs in scoring with 30 points, followed by Maurice Richard's 28. Mahovich had 27. So the Montreal Canadiens were flying. Brett Hull, 24. Mike Modano was up there. Brad Richards and Wayne Gretzky is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Maurice Richard, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy. The Norris is going to go to Paul Coffey. The Lady Bing also to Gretzky, and the Conn Smythe, of course, to Mike Modano. The Vezina to Terry Sawchuk, and the Selke will go to Joe Sakic of the Colorado Avalanche. And for the final season of the video, the St. Louis Blues are going to end up finishing as the best team in the NHL, winning 58 games, followed by the Red Wings, who also won 58. Montreal was up there. New York, Pittsburgh, Hartford. The Hartford Whalers won 49. Brett Hull is going to lead the entire NHL in scoring with 98 points, followed by Wayne Gretzky's 95. The other Gretzky had 90. Lemieux was up there with 84. Brad Richards had 12 goals, but 70 assists for 82 points. Mike Modano, 79. Yuri Curry was up there. The other Gretzky was up there as well. Gordie Howe had 78 and 38 goals. Joe Sakic, 78 and 34 goals. Now, speaking of goals, Wayne Gretzky is going to lead the way with 51, followed by Brett Hull's 49. Mario Lemieux was up there with 48. The other Gretzky and Hull were there. Gordie Howe, 38. Daniel Sedin had 37. Paul Coffey is going to lead all D-man in points with 73, followed by Scott Niedermayer, 62. Ray Bourque was up there as well. Phil Housley had 62. Mark Howe, my bad, had 58. Chris Chelios had 51. Now, for goalies, who's going to have the most wins? Terry Sawchuk, 49 wins on the season, followed by Patrick Waugh and Grant Fuhr, who had 41. Henrik Lundqvist was up there with 40. And for shutouts on the season, Terry Sawchuk is going to have 10, which leads all goaltenders. Patrick Waugh had 7. Grant Fuhr was up there. Ryan Miller had 5. Kelly Rudy, my bad. Mike Vernon was up there. Glenn Hall, Grant Fuhr, Cam Ward. And in the Stanley Cup Final, we have the St. Louis Blues versus the Detroit Red Wings, the 2 best teams in the entire NHL. They would each end up winning 58 games in the regular season, and now they meet up in the Stanley Cup Final. So let's see who is going to go on and take home the Stanley Cup in the 5th and final season of the video. And just like that, the Detroit Red Wings are going to go on and win the Stanley Cup as they dominate St. Louis in 5 games in the Stanley Cup Final. It was not even remotely close. They were by far the best team in the playoffs, or in the finals, I should say. And in the regular season, it was a tie because both teams had 58 wins on the season. So it was very clear that these two were going to meet in the Stanley Cup Final. I mean, they were by far the best 2 teams in the league this season. And Detroit is going to come out on top as Luc Robitaille takes on the Conn Smythe. And there it is, the Stanley Cup being raised in St. Louis, not Detroit. We are on the road here, but the Red Wings are going to get it done as Steve Yzerman yet again is coming to collect the Stanley Cup for the Detroit Red Wings alumni as they take home, I believe this is their 2nd Stanley Cup of the video, as they are our year 5 Stanley Cup champions. Luc Robitaille and Wayne Gretzky are in a tie for the most points at 22. Each had 7 goals and 15 assists, so that Conn Smythe was definitely well deserved. Stevie Y was up there with 21. Brett Hull, 20. Paul Coffey, 20. Brett Hull is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while the Maurice Richard will go to Wayne Gretzky of the New York Rangers. Norris to Paul Coffey, the Lady Byng to Brett Hull, and the Conn Smythe, of course, to Luc Robitaille. The Vezina, yet again, will go to Terry Sawchuk, and the Selke is going to go to Joe Sakic of the Colorado Avalanche yet again. And that is going to do it for this video, boys. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And it looks like Detroit has the best alumni team in the NHL, as they won the most Stanley Cups out of any team during the video. So hats off to them. I mean, they are absolutely stacked. They have guys like Gordie Howe, Nick Lidstrom, Stevie Y. Also, if I do sound very weird, again, I am sick, and I think it's getting worse day after day. I don't like sounding this way, but hopefully it doesn't ruin the video. Regardless, I would like to say thank you all for watching, and until next time, don't be silly. Wrap your willy.